Hello there, dear viewer. I have another build for you, and it's rather OP. And it uses two crafting skills. I can feel you judging me. Okay, fine, but hear me out. The build is actually my little break from Oblivion class restoration project, which I urge you to watch. And this one is a destruction mage in light armor. It's not exactly a battle mage, since those usually have a weapon, at least as a backup. This one is not allowed to use any, not even bound one. It is still a war mage, a spellcaster with a berserker mentality, trying to deal as much damage as possible in the shortest time possible, charging head-on into the battle, frying, electrocuting and paralyzing. If you ever wanted to make a spellcaster for whom the companions is the perfect questline, this is probably for you. Although, okay, you will have to draw a weapon once to join the companions, but that should be the only time. I have a build with a similar concept in my library. It's called Dragon Sorcerer, link in the description. But this one uses much more advanced spells and has Apocalypse as well as Odin and elemental destruction spells and Summermyst enchantments, so obviously amplified destruction was placed on more than one slot. Hence the WARMAGE is so OP, it made me laugh at my screen while testing. It's not completely devoid of challenge early game, and at least it takes quite some time to reach the full OP status. It's not a complete joke build, but there is just so many explosions and so many ways of dealing horribly high damage. And later in the game there is some tactical crowd control, even from the impact perk and the levitation of the shock spells, and corpses start to leave a patch of fire behind them so they can burn more people and leave flames for other people to burn in, and they die and they burn more people, and it's never ending. The only weakness of the build is that you will often be blinded with your own spells.
Blinding heal! Blinding heal! Blinding heal! Guys, stop! Magic!
There will be just so many of them at your screen at one time. For the mods, we need Vokrii, Apocalypse, Odin, Elemental Destruction, Morningstar, Summermyst, and Immersive Armors. The set I am wearing is not pronounceable for me, so I'm not going to try it, even though it's on the screen right now. Also, Apocalypse needs a compatibility patch with Vokrii, and so does Elemental Destruction, and the latter has a separate page on Nexus, links in the description of course. For the race I went with the Morningstar Dark Elf because they have the Spite ability, where they can deal up to 50% more damage when below half health. The vanilla power would also fit, but this one is useful throughout the entire playthrough and creates an interesting, risky playstyle when you don't want to heal until the last moment. To use the ability more comfortably, we need quite a lot of health, so I would suggest to take 1 point of health for every 2 points of magicka overall, but actually go 50-50 before level 20, because in the early game we will rely on close range spells and therefore we will take quite a few hits. For this reason you may consider Andromeda's Apprentice Stone in the early game and then switching to the Atronach to get just one of our many bonuses to overall spell damage. I tested the character on level 10 and 15 and 20 something with Atronach only, and the lack of regeneration was annoying at times. Apprentice, if you don't know, will let you cast novice spells for free, so you will have something to do even when out of magicka. The Atronach is the best for flavor, though you get magicka for defeating enemies, so very berserker-like. For the skills, we will get a bit scatterbrained, taking a few low-level perks in many skills, but focusing greatly on destruction, light armor, and alteration. Yeah, I know, armor spells would be more cost-effective, but heck, I just really wanted him in a high-level barbarian-like armor. Also, the evasive sprint perk will let us ignore all damage when rushing towards the enemies, sprinting, I mean, which we will do quite frequently, precisely to use the perk and to just close the distance between us and our enemy. In destruction we will take almost everything, although the frost-related perks are to be omitted, since fire, earth and wind spells seem to be more than enough to handle close-range combat, and chain lightning is still the best thing to do for long-range combat, in terms of cost-effectiveness at least, with the impact perk in play. Our runes will be cast with no range limit, finally, which will open up a nice combo of Wildfire and Fire Rune, perfect for narrow corridors and mid-range combat. Elemental Shield will max out our fire resistance when Fire Cloak is used, and generally eliminate the need for elemental resistance enchantments, particularly when combined with alteration perks and spells, actually. For example, with a 50% Fortified Destruction Potion, Seeker of Sorcery and 2 items of Amplified Destruction, our Wall of Flames will deal 160 damage per second, while the Flame Cloak will deal 35 per second and apply 25% weakness to fire. The weakness which we may occasionally increase with Odin's Vulnerability spell. And my go-to adept spell, Storm Hands, which deals damage at melee range, will deal 346 damage per cast. At the cost of 10 points of magicka, it's nothing.
It's a kind of magic. Magic.
It's really scary. Then, in speech, we will take all the shout-related perks, which means we will combo our Ungodly Destruction with enhanced slow time shout, stacking all the horrifying destruction damage on top of itself until everything is dead, basically. Tonal Harmony will let us regain a little bit of magicka when using a shout, which is mighty useful for the Atronach builds. High Speech will also be useful for buying all those expensive spell tomes. We will unfortunately waste 1 perk point in Alteration for the 1 rank of Mage Armor, which we can't use, but it is worth as the prerequisite for the Initiate. Great for out of magicka moments, and when you have Initiate you can definitely drop the Apprentice as Standing Stone for the Atronach if you started with Apprentice. And most importantly, for Okatos Preparation. On the right we want all the ranks of magic resistance, at least 1 rank of Alter Self to increase magicka by 50 points, and Atronach will be nice to have as well, the perk I mean, but with the elemental resistance gained from cloak spells it is not of high priority. In Conjuration we aim for both ranks of Oblivion Stone to improve our Daedric summons. Even though this is a support skill for the build, early in the game, before the armor rating and destruction perks are maxed, a strong Odin summon, such as Clanfear or a strong Apocalypse summon, for example, can really save your arse frequently. Although those Clanfears really make some creepy sounds. Just brace yourself. I am mildly traumatized. In light armor we need the middle branch up to matching set, since the Rain armor works with it, and evasive sprint will be useful for the reasons already mentioned. Finally, I took just the mastery perk in some other skills, namely Restoration to avoid wasting too much magicka for healing, in Enchanting to avoid relying on honed metal entirely, since we need to spend our gold on so many spellbooks, and one in Alchemy, the Mastery in Alchemy, to make some decent Fortified Destruction potions. For our equipment, we need a full set of Jian armor, enchanted with Fortify Magicka on the gauntlets, Siphon Magicka on the hood, Fortify Destruction on the armor, and Reactive Barrier on the shoes. Reactive Barrier will be super useful when combined with Elemental Shield perk. You just need to be smart about what cloaks to use against whom, and you can get up to 70% resistance to any element of your choice. On the ring, let's get another Fortified Destruction and Amplified Destruction on the necklace. Also, listen, it's not my fault that this armor allows for circlets to be worn on top of the helmet and underneath the hoodie helmet thingy. I didn't make it this way, don't judge me. Just just place another Amplified Destruction on the circlet. So, twice the 25% increase in destruction spells damage is 50, 10 from Seeker of Sorcery, that gives 60, and then another 50 or 60 from potions means up to 120% more spell damage, and that's not even counting the specialized elemental damage perks or the fact that our endgame summon, Dremora Honor Guard, will reduce magic resistance of the enemies by 25%. This is sick and therefore deviant.
This is sick and it's therefore deviant.
But speaking of summons, there is plenty of spells which can be potentially useful for the build like this. All cloaks, runes and walls of the elements you specialize in will be good, but dual cast Flame Rune with Fortified Destruction will be powerful enough to drag you through your 20s and 30s. Generally, when in doubt, go all fire or earth. When fighting at range, go lightning or wind. To make the build even more redonkulous than it already is, we will store 2 OP Odin spells in Apocalypse Okatos Recital. So Troll's Blood to increase the health regeneration in combat, Resist Elements which grants 35% of resistance to vanilla elements and poison, and then, as default, most frequently used cloak spell, the Flame Cloak, will be also in the Okatos Recital. Ebony Flesh will be triggered by Okatos Preparation perk. It is still advisable to cast the cloak yourself sometimes using both hands, because this way the reach of your cloak spells is greatly extended. The Wildfire Fire Rune combo was mentioned already. If you can, you should use Wildfire in the staff form, because it will take a while before you can cast it repeatedly with not much of a concern for your magicka pool. My absolute favorite thing to do with Destruction Mages is cast Paralyze first and then place a wall spell on paralyzed foes. However, with Odin, we can pair Paralyze with Vulnerability, which makes the target weaker to elemental and poison damage, which of course stacks with the weakness to elements applied with our cloak spells and with the magic resist reduction with our conjured Dremora, so you can potentially build up a lot of damage to those poor paralyzed bandits and other foes. Bombardment is a cool spell too, and is the great way to spray everything in front of you with disgusting amounts of damage, although it will always be a rather costly move, so it is best to use in longer fights that already are heading towards a victorious closure. And finally, the Lightning Cloak dual cast for the range increase with some Fortified Destruction potions, and the dual cast Chain Lightning is a perfect anti-mage and anti-dragon move, especially if combined with some shouts. So here is the list of the most useful shouts. So with our speech perks, the Blessing of Talos and Dragon Aspect, slow time's duration will easily extend its cooldown time. So it basically means a constant slow time, which is also improved in effectiveness. So it slows time more than usual, so it basically feels like cheating. Drain Vitality, when combined with some other shouts, thanks to the decreased cooldown timer, and some spells, becomes a very good way to tear through low-level enemies and weaken the big baddies considerably. Particularly good against mages and dragons when you already have the Cloak and Chain Lightning depleting magicka, and then placing Drain Vitality on top of that can really mess up with enemy spell casting, even if they somehow survive all of this, which is not that frequent. With a build like this, I could talk for like a half an hour, and there is a lot of things to talk about. For example, you could do interesting stuff with master level ritual spells here, and there is a lot you could do with alchemy to top all of this with some cool potions. And an argument could be made for replacing the reactive barrier enchantment late in the game, when you already have the resist elements spell automated, and so on and so forth. Actually, the builds like this are just never ending, but it will have to do for now, because I have an assassin to make, and actually I am overflown with build ideas for Odin, and I'm really working under much pressure, guys, here. I'm oppressed, what can I say? So I hope you will have some fun here with this one, and we will see each other again. Bye. Bye.
Yes, of course, I shall focus fire the troll using the power of my magic, for I am a master in the ways of magic.
Yeah, cool.